this episode of The Secret Sauce, I have invited Steve Milo. Steve Milo is the CEO of VTrips, and VTrips is a property management company based in the US. They're actually multi-location. They have properties in 5 states, 1,800 properties today, looking to grow to 4,000 in the next 3 years. Steve is going to tell us all about how he plans to grow and about technology. He's one of the few property managers I've met that doesn't build his own technology. He relies on third parties. So he's going to tell us all about that and also the importance of accounting, especially when you're looking cross states. This is an interview that is available on YouTube and on podcast, and I see you on the other side. Cheers. Hi Steve, thanks so much for participating to the secret sauce of large property managers. I am very curious about VTrips and your business, so thank you so much for being here. And let's launch ourselves straight into it. You're very famous in the crowd of conferences. You're always there, but maybe not everyone knows who you are and what VTrips is. So please, can you tell us who you are, what you were doing before VTrips, and your current position at VTrips?
Okay, sure. Well, I'm the founder, CEO of VTrips. I'm not sure we were well known 10 years ago when I just had a handful of properties, but you know, my background previous to VTrips was technology. I was actually working as director of e-commerce for a pretty large consumer company out of Chicago. So I got into VTrips using my technology background, and I've been able to expand as a result, and I guess I've joined the conference circuit in part to get the VTrips name out there.
And so for those who don't know VTrips, how many properties you have today?
We have 1,800. We're multi-destination, so we're in 5 states in North America, 14 offices, 150 employees, and the thing that I think makes us different from many of the larger multi-destination companies is we have not taken any equity. It's all been financed through profit or through banks.
Okay, so I'm interested in talking about scaling with you in a minute. But who are your customers? Do you consider yourself more a B2C brand or a B2B brand? Who is your first target customer?
Well, it's definitely B2C, and we have 2 customers. We have the owner of the property, and we have the guest. So, you know, the property owner is who engages us in an exclusive contract. So our contracts are all exclusive, which is a little different than Europe. And then obviously we have the guest who is staying at one of the accommodations, and we're servicing. We are a full service property management company, so we are offering end-to-end services.
Great. And so whereabouts? You said 5 states. Well, which states are those?
Florida, the largest state for vacation rentals in North America. We're in South Carolina, Tennessee in the mountains, New Mexico also in the mountains, and then we're in Hawaii. And part of that geographic diversity is because we've had our share of weather-related hurricanes in Florida. So diversifying our footprint just made prudent financial sense.
And how did you diversify? Did you acquire property management companies?
Yes. We started acquiring companies in the recession, first really regionally. So we just kind of took our footprint in Northeast Florida, which is where I'm based, and we just kind of went up and down the coast using M&A of smaller companies. And then we started to go outside of our region in the state of Florida using M&A.
So what makes a good company to acquire?
Well, you know, I guess the answer would be people, but that's not really the right answer. It's, you know, we take a hard look at the data, the numbers of the market first. So we look at markets. So we want to enter a market, and then we take a look at companies within that market that are looking to sell. And that's where the people part comes into play. But we're not going to just buy a company that's not in a market that makes sense to us.
All right. How many companies have you acquired in total?
We've acquired probably 15 or 16 companies. We've done quite a few what I'd call in-market roll-ups, where we're in the same market, but we've rolled up. as many as 4 companies within the same market. So it's been quite a few. And we did actually in about a 1-year period, we did 10 roll-ups in one 12-month period.
Whoa, I bet that was a crazy year.
Yeah, well, it kind of gave us some lessons. So part of, doing this without venture funding is, we've been able to kind of taken a look at what worked, what didn't work, and assess ourselves and put systems in place, hire the people that would make sense for integration, and be ready to essentially do M&A again, which is actually what we're in the midst of right now. So we're actually out raising a considerable amount of money, debt, not equity, and we'll be continuing to accelerate the M&A front in North America.
Fabulous. And so what happens once you acquire a company? How is it then put into the brand? Do you give access to technology? Is the property management company still running it's always? How does it take advantage of this new acquisition?
Well, I mean, the thing with VTrips is we try to move every company we acquire onto our technology platform within 60 to 90 days. We've tried it both ways. We've tried to operate them autonomously, and we've tried to integrate them quickly. And the integration quickly is what makes the most sense. So part of putting them onto our technology platform is we get our smart home technology, we get our distribution to our marketing partners, we get our revenue management and yield management components, and then we get the centralization that we have at VTrips, which is centralized accounting, marketing, IT, even reservations. So it just makes a lot of sense to kind of onboard. The local companies, typically, if it's a new market, are probably going to keep their brand and have a co-brand. So we still have local brands where they have deep roots within the community. We still keep those brands. But then we have the VTrips umbrella brand. In terms of the people within the office, we try to give everybody we can a job. If they're in an accounting or IT or marketing function, we take a look and see if they can kind of essentially assimilate into our centralized process. That's worked in some cases. We have people that are working in our quote satellite offices that are essentially leveraging their skills on the entire company. That's really the object of G&A roll up, where you're gaining efficiencies, you're gaining centralization, and you're able to, through that centralization, really kind of get some G&A efficiencies and synergies.
But having local offices on the ground is important, do you think?
Yeah, well, one of the things I think you were at a conference where I talked about lessons learned, and we tried this whole concept of the virtual office. In fact, there were some conferences where I talked about the virtual offices back in 2010, 2011. And, from my standpoint, it did not work. So I get where virtual offices are appealing, particularly as a pitch deck PowerPoint slide. But the reality is you need boots on the ground. You need guest services. You certainly need owner services, and you need a nexus. And, that's a lesson we kind of learned the hard way by doing it both ways. And having an office, having a nexus makes most sense. Now, the one thing we've learned is if we go into a market, you don't need 4 or 5 offices in the same market. You can gain consolidation, and that's something we've done when we go in market and we do additional roll-ups in market. So you don't need to have 4 or 5 offices. But you do need to have one.
Okay, very good. And so how do you deal with brand consistency? Is that something that's really important for VTrips? It's a question I like to ask because we see more and more with the master lease model, property managers are building really strong brands. Is this something that you put a lot of importance on? Is it doable with the product that you have, which is not master lease? Correct. It's
right. No master lease.
No master leases. Yeah.
Master lease is kind of a race to the bottom in terms of arbitrage, but that's a different podcast.
Okay. Okay. So for your product, which is mainly villas, can we call them villas?
Yeah.
Yeah, and in non-urban locations, or you also have urban?
No, we're just strictly in resort. So oceans, mountains.
Okay.
That's where we are.
So given that product, is it possible to have a strong brand, a VTrips brand that B2C would recognize and then come back to?
I think it's possible. I'm not sure that it's our priority at this point. I think it's going to take a while to build a brand, and I think that brand is going to be built from the bottom up as opposed to the top down. I don't know that it's feasible to just spend a huge amount of money building PR, public awareness on a brand. But I do think that as you start to gain consolidation and synergies within market, certainly as you start to do some of the things we're doing, which is purpose-built home communities where we have exclusive leases into perpetuity, that's where you're going to start to build the brand. And I think that brand then can be built from the bottom up. But it's a little bit different, certainly, than what Airbnb's done, but they're an OTA.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, so that's that on brand. And next question. This is a bit of a tricky one, and I haven't asked yet. But what was your biggest mistake up until now when you talk about business?
Well, I guess one mistake was going into signing a contract with a company called Red Awning. That was a bad one.
Oh gosh.
You may have heard that name before, but anyhow, we've made some mistakes in terms of trying to grow too fast without having the infrastructure in place. And I'm talking about people. So, when we did 10 roll-ups in 12 months, we did not have the accounting piece in place. And, what I did is I slowed down, made sure I hired the accounting team, which is a chief financial officer, a couple of people in FP&A, financial planning and analysis, because first of all, I'm very numbers driven. And second of all, so much of onboarding and bringing in companies is the due diligence and the what I call the true up and the integration. And you can really lose control of your costs very fast. And, from my standpoint, I think it's been clear that this is not a sprint on the property management side. It's a marathon. Getting the foundation right, firming it up, making sure you have the people in place, making sure you have the core competency in place is going to position you fast. So we've certainly bucked the trend about growing revenue at all costs. In fact, I've said, forget about growing revenue. Let's focus on profitability. Let's build this business the right way. We're in a marathon. We're not in a sprint. Some of the people that are racing ahead, we're going to see them on the sideline, probably in a fetal position.
That's a good expression. Well, we'll see. We'll see what next year brings. But it's true that many people are scaling very, very fast. And so you talked about technology very quickly. You said you bring all of these property management company onto your umbrella technology platform. And you mentioned smart home automation, centralized accounting. Are these tools that you've built yourself, or do you rely solely on third-party software?
Well, that's a good question. So again, one of the things that we've made a strategic decision to do versus not is work with hosted companies. So, there's been two paths. Some of the companies that are venture funded are going after building their own software and getting into the software development component. We do not believe that that's a core competency of ours, that we're not software programmers, but we are really good at property management. And so instead, what we like to do is partner with companies that are best of breed and work with their hosted systems, and then through API connect them together. So smart home technology, we're working with a company called BHome247. They've been excellent. Property management systems, we're in the process of making a decision to migrate to a new hosted system. We've done an extensive request for proposal. We have 3 companies that have been fantastic and I think have best of breed systems, Kigo, Guesty, and Trax, and we'll be narrowing down that search by probably the end of the month or certainly the end of November. We have customer relation management systems. We host our website using a third-party vendor. And then distribution. We use a number of companies to help us with distribution. Some of it directly through a property management system company, and some of it using companies that are called channel managers.
I know a thing or two about channel managers. Very good. So that's great. So you went out and you asked these PMSs to put in a paper and to show off what they can do for you, for your particular product. That's very common in the hotel industry, but I actually never heard of this happening in the VR industry.
Well, I think the VR industry is growing up a little. It's going from maybe infant stage to at least the next stage of childhood. Part of this is requests for proposals are critical. And I think one of the things we did is I actually formed a group with other enterprise customers called the Vacation Software Advisory Group, where we went out and basically talked to a number of different customers about what are enterprise requirements. And the reason why we just didn't do it is I didn't want to lead property management systems down a road of saying, hey, this is a customized system only for VTrips. We really wanted to make sure that we just went through and we scoped out requirements from a number of enterprise leading systems or leading companies in North America. And that's what we've done. And we came up with requirements, and then we presented them to the property management systems. And a number of companies were not at a point where they could even come close to those requirements. But 3 of them said, hey, we can do it. And really, I mean, to me, the thing that's really separating the companies that are enterprise versus the companies that aren't is the accounting system. And I know that sounds like just kind of a common word, accounting system, but I mean, accounting systems and property management systems are very, very complex, because not only do you have the reservation from the guest, but then you have the distribution back to the owner of the property. You have service order billing. You have all the things that function through an accounting system. And then you have trust accounting in certain states and even certain counties and cities, as well as sales tax and owner distribution. And all that stuff has to tie. Look, I mean, we do audited statements. We have a big accounting firm called Grant Thornton that does our audit statement. And one of the things they do is means testing. And at the end of the year, when your books are closed, they go back and they sample, items from your system. And if those items don't reconcile with your previous statements, that's going to give you a bad statement in terms of, at least a footnote, and certainly potentially even flagging you as a going concern. So, this is just common sense. And I applaud the 3 companies that we've talked to about making the commitment to accounting system. Guesty has put a ton of money into building out an accounting system. So is Kigo. Trax is a little further along. But look, I mean, these 3 companies recognize they want to be big. And in order to get the larger enterprise companies, accounting is the core requirement.
Yeah, especially when you talk to the States. And I mean, I don't know how they would be able to do this across the Atlantic as well. I mean, it just gets so complex. Isn't it a question of finding multiple different technologies that connect to each other that are best of breed, which you already said was home automation, PMS. What about accounting? Is this not something that could be plugged in?
No, I mean, we did a diagram, and accounting is really a core function. Now, you can plug in just about everything else. So I'd say accounting, reservation, content, those are really rates. The way your rates display, how they are pulled out, those are really your core components. Everything else can then be run through an API. And most of these companies, particularly in Europe, were just built on reservations and rates. Accounting just was not something that they thought through at the beginning. So, there certainly is a bigger learning curve getting into North America. And as I said, North America has numerous states that have trust accounting laws. You're going to have to do something called reconciliation, where your bank account and your property management system audit to the penny. So, it's very, very tough to get there, but that's what enterprise companies need.
Well, good luck to them. I'm very glad I'm not in the PMS business, but in the channel management business. And in fact, that leads me to the next question is, how do you choose the channels that you work with? Because with so many properties, I mean, you must really excel at distribution, right? So how do you choose the channels that you want to work with? Do you work with niche sites as well? Or are you just advertising on the big top 10, let's say?
Well, 5 years ago, 80% of our business was coming in offline, 20% was coming in online, and most of that 20% that was coming in online was really through our own direct website. Fast forward today, and we're definitely closer to 60% online and 40%. Well, actually, it's 70% online and 30% offline. So now the online mix is pretty interesting, where OTAs, our friends, Airbnb, Expedia, Booking.com, those big three companies have made up a big chunk of online distribution. So back 5 years plus, it was mostly a business where you got an email or a phone call, and that's how you basically paid for these OTAs. Now everything is transactional. So we've been masters at transactional, and we've done it in a number of ways. One, through API feeds directly through the property management system, and another is through companies that are channel managers, which Rental United is one of them. And we've been able to do that. The interesting thing is 10% of our OTA business is coming from miscellaneous. And so miscellaneous would be kind of the niche sites that you're talking about. There's a company in Gatlinburg, Tennessee in the mountains that does well over 10% of our revenue in there. They're called SmokyMountain.com. Wes Melton, David Agati, you may have seen him at one of the conferences. I mean, they've built an amazing niche site. And we have niche sites in Hawaii. We have niche sites in the Panhandle. The ones that have really worked well for us are geographical niche sites, because I think they can focus in on the organic search words. And then you've got the big 3 or 4, depending on if you want to separate VRBO out of Expedia. And, those we've made tremendous strides, particularly the non-VRBO business. This year, we've seen pretty significant increases of Booking.com, which in Europe, obviously, they're the dominant channel, but in North America, they're definitely not as big. We've seen good increases in Expedia, and then we've also seen healthy increases in Airbnb. And Google is another component that we're working closely on, getting integration directly with them. And then, we're even taking a look at trying to get an integration directly with Ctrip or through a channel manager so that we can access the China market. So, distribution, I'm a huge believer of it. I think what it does is it increases exposure, it increases demand. The more demand that we have, the more occupancy we can fill, and frankly, some of the ADR we can tweak up higher. So I don't really see the downside of distribution. I only see the upside.
Great. And do you also drive traffic to your own website? Do you do AdWords, etc.?
Oh yeah, I mean, of course.
Okay.
I mean, our website's always going to have the lowest price. And once we get a customer through an OTA, that's when we begin the communication that, hey, in the future, rebook with us directly. So, I think there's an inherent ability for property management companies to drive bookings direct by educating the consumer that the best price will be on their website. And, part of that is we don't have a guest traveler fee, right? So some of these companies like Airbnb and VRBO are charging fairly excessive guest traveler fee. And there's a portion of guests that have become extremely smart about just going to organic search and finding the direct source. And then in some cases, we're charging different rate plans depending on the OTA. So a company like Booking.com has a fairly expensive cost of acquisition to their network. So we build that into the rate plan that we distribute to them. So that's kind of the way we've been able to maneuver through what is a fairly tricky, complicated process with OTAs. But we've had really good gains, and also on the direct side, we've used it as a funnel. The business previously that I was in was called the Bradford Exchange, and Bradford Exchange is probably not well known in Europe, but a very large company in North America, about a $500 million company, direct to consumer, and they did collectibles. They did plates, dolls, trains, jewelry. You name it, they did it, and they were really strong in continuity. So continuity programs would be where they would just keep sending a product over and over again. So if somebody was into jewelry and they had a bracelet, they would continue to send, pieces of the bracelet to them every single month. Those are called continuity program. And what you find out is there's a major difference between the cost of acquisition and the true lifetime value. And the lifetime value of a customer can be worth a very, very large sum of money. And that's where ROI is based. So when we take a look at these channels, it's not just, the cost of acquisition. We're also factoring in what the true lifetime value is. And some of the channels that have the least disintermediation are going to be the ones that have the higher lifetime value. I strongly believe, obviously, the Airbnb is the stickiest channel right now. But some of the other channels are less sticky. And I think the lifetime value of that customer is much better since they're less likely to go back to that OTA. They're more likely to go back to the direct brand and book again.
And so did you invest in creating a loyalty program at all?
We haven't yet. It's something we've talked about. Those loyalty programs are tricky. You have to have them nailed down because they become a liability. So, we've been very, very careful and prudent about entering things until we absolutely have it nailed down. That would be one example.
And what about NPS? That's the big talk at the moment. Do you run an NPS on your properties?
We don't. We take a look at reviews. We have not done an NPS. Maybe we should. I hear it's a big buzzword in Great Britain.
Yes. We should listen to the Sykes interview. Graham Donahue. He's a master at NPS. Yes.
That's what I've heard.
Yes. Well, I will send you the episode. And okay, so let's talk a little bit about the industry. And what are your thoughts? I mean, consolidation is the big word. Lots been happening both on the tech side and on the property management side. What are your thoughts around consolidation?
Well, I mean, obviously, we're one of the companies that's consolidating because we're buying smaller companies up and we're rolling them into a centralized platform. So I think it's a given because it's a highly fragmented market. Having said that, even with the amount of money that's been poured into the industry, Vacasa, by its own press release, is saying that they're only 3.3% of the North American market and 1% of the worldwide market. And that's with hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars invested in. So I think really, in terms of consolidation, we're going to see more and more consolidation. It certainly makes sense. Technology really is allowing part of the consolidation. And some of it is that the smaller companies are just very inefficient. And there's also a large component of property managers we've talked about who are in their 60s, 70s, even 80s, and they're looking for an exit. Those companies are more difficult to integrate, though, those smaller companies of 50 to 100 units, and you have to be good at integration. I think what's going to really separate the companies that actually consolidate is really not how fast they consolidate, but how much of the business they sustain 2 years after the acquisition. There's some companies that have made a lot of clippings about acquisition and roll-ups, but they are hemorrhaging property owners as they bring them on and attempt to merge them together. That's called churn. I think some companies have, that's their Achilles heel with their own internal software. And that's just a fundamentally bad business model. So it'll be interesting to see which business models actually prevail for the long run, because some of them right now are inherently dysfunctional. Okay,
so you will not be dysfunctional because you've learned the hard way. Yes, you've scaled too fast, so now you know. And you said you're going to finance it with it's called debt financing, correct? And how many property management companies are you looking to acquire then next year? What's the big picture? Where are you going to be in 3 years, let's say?
Well, we hope we're going to. I mean, we've actually sat down and talked about it. Our goal is to increase by 3 times our size within the 3 to 4 years. So we have a path to do that. We'll increase our revenue, our unit count, and our bottom line actually will increase more than 3 times. But that would put us, give or take, at 4,000 to 5,000 units. And a very healthy top line and a very healthy bottom line. Certainly, we'd be up there with anyone in the industry, probably better because we've run such a good business.
Great. And any other states you're eyeing up? Are you coming to Europe?
No. So all my friends in Europe can rest assured I'm going to leave Europe to them. It's a great market. We love it. But we have enough opportunity in North America, and I like exclusive contracts. Now, we've been eyeing a number of different states. We do like in-market. So, we're fortunate that Florida is the biggest state in North America by far with the number of vacation rentals. But, in-market is highly accretive in terms of the margins that we can get. So, it's going to be a balance. We've actually are getting very, very granular and methodical into new markets. We're doing some pretty exhaustive research. We're using a third party to help us just to pinpoint the areas, not just for occupancy, but also ADR, fees, competition, all of the things that would really kind of take a look at a market. So we're trying to be very, very smart before we enter a market. It's very costly to enter a new market. So I think one of the lessons learned is it's not how many markets you're in, it's how effective you do in the markets you really are in. And, our goal is certainly we would rather consolidate a market we're in than just race out and try to put a bunch of dots on the wall. That just doesn't make any sense to me. Maybe the venture capital funds, but not to me.
Very good. You seem very well prepared. So thank you so much. What I'm going to do now is ask you a set of questions, and you need to reply true or false. Okay? It's like a game show.
Right.
Okay, first one. The vacation rental industry will topple the hotel industry next year.
No, false.
Voice-activated travel assistants are a must.
True.
Google will become the only OTA.
False.
Consolidation in the tech industry is bad for property managers in the tech
False.
industry. Consolidation of property management companies is bad for guests.
False.
Vacation rental growth in urban areas will continue despite regulations.
True.
You have to invest in technology because your guests' needs are changing.
True.
Key locks are a must.
True.
US brands will have a hard time implementing in Europe.
False.
European brands will have a hard time implementing in the States.
True.
When space travel becomes available, you'll scale into lunar territory.
True.
I'm sure you will. And I see you there, Steve. So wonderful. Thanks so much. And I see you at the next event in London next week, right? See you at Host.
That's right.
Yes?
Thank you, Vanessa.
Okay. Thanks so much. Take care, Steve.
Thanks.
Thanks. Bye. I'm Vanessa from Rentals United, co-founder and marketing director. Thank you very much for listening to this episode or viewing it on YouTube. I'm looking for your feedback, whether good or bad. I'm after finding out what you think. And if you have questions that you would like me to ask these large property managers for you, that would be very helpful, and I'd love to hear from you anyway. My email is Vanessa with 2 S's at rentalsunited.com. Cheers.